So here's the deal. Over the last few years, up until and including this week, various countries around the world have started to release things that they call autism strategies. I guess what they've done, and I'm talking about countries like the UK, Canada, the US, and where I live, Australia. And in effect, what they've done is they've decided, wow, it's 2025. We've really forgotten about a couple of different classes of disabled people. Autistic people seem to be doing quite badly. Maybe we should look into that. Let's look into if they are doing badly or not. And then they looked into it and they realized, holy crap, autistic people's qualities of lives are in the dunny. That's Australian for toilet. And what are we supposed to do? Well, I guess we better fix it. And they've decided to come up with a strategy. Just like every single team who plays competitive sports all have strategies. But do they all win the championship at the end of the season? Well, no, only one team does. But hang on, they all had strategies, so shouldn't they all win? No, they shouldn't. They all have different strategies. What's the difference between a good strategy and a winning team? They can put a good strategy into action and achieve desired results. But can these national autism strategies actually achieve their purpose? Let's find out. Welcome, my stars of Orion. Thank you so much for watching. I'm orionkelly, that autistic guy. I'm all about providing validation and support for autistic people and their loved ones. I want to talk about the Australian context, but know this, that if you look it up in your governmental websites or Google it or whatever, you're absolutely going to find that there are some other countries that are looking into or have already implemented national autism strategies. So this is a worldwide thing. But here's a snapshot from the Australian perspective. Now, I'm reading this and sharing this document with you from the newly released National Autism Strategy in Australia. And like I said, let's go to the numbers. Okay, so this is based on Australian numbers. More than 290,000 Australians, there's about 25 million of us in total, that is Australians, have a diagnosis of autism. However, the number of autistic people living in Australia is likely to be substantially higher. Oh, really? Many different reasons, historical approaches to diagnosis, cost or wait times to receive a diagnosis, and people may feel that diagnosis isn't the right path for them. They've even got a quote from a real autistic person. Even after getting a formal diagnosis, people often question whether I'm really autistic or how much it actually impacts my life. Well, that's absolutely great insight. Employment. Autistic people are almost 6 times more likely to be unemployed than people without a disability. Now, how about this quote? 2 bachelor degrees, yet they've worked in a supermarket on checkouts for 15 years. Education. At least 3.8% of Australian school-age kids are autistic. 3.8% of kids in school right now are autistic. Autism is a lifelong condition. Apparently that's groundbreaking news, but yes, okay, thank you. 68.9% of autistic people between 5 and 20 years of age attending school or TAFE or uni or educational institutions experience difficulty at their place of learning. In other words, barriers where they're trying to be educated. 68.9%, what a load of shit that is. It's 100%. Only 5.2% of autistic people had a bachelor degree or higher, compared with 19.7% of people with a disability and 35.3% of people without a disability. In other words, autism is a medically diagnosed disability. However, among our disability peers, so all other people with one form or another of a medically diagnosed disability, 19.7% of them have a bachelor degree or higher, which is a really high level of education. Autistic people, only 5%. That's a big number. Autistic adults experience more barriers to healthcare than non-autistic people. Autistic people are 2.5 times more likely to experience depression than the general population. So compared to the general population, autistic adults experience higher rates of physical and sexual violence and are more likely to be subject to cyclical or repeated instances of violence. They are experiencing social exclusion at higher rates than the general population. And how about this? Autistic people are experiencing discrimination and are at higher risk of homelessness than the general population. Autistic people are overrepresented in the criminal justice system and are likely to experience significant barriers in accessing justice services. This is a massive one. So what is Australia's National Autism Strategy? This is the thing, right? Remember I said all teams can have a strategy, but not all teams win? You need a good strategy that you then implement by taking action that then results in achieving the desired outcome. So we've got step one, but the government don't actually care about all the other steps. And they can go, well, that's wrong, Orion. We've got an action plan. I can see it on the screen already in blue. Yes, that's right. But you actually have to take the action and achieve the desired results. And if the action isn't right, what will be achieved? Okay, so it's a framework for improving the life outcomes for all autistic people. It says in the years ahead. In the years ahead. So what was back up here again? Let me work this out. Let's have a look here. This is it. That's right. Autistic people are 2.5 times more likely to experience depression than the general population. Okay, so hang on. What is that? How many will be around? You're going to do this in the years ahead. Oh, that's good for the 3 people that will still be here. It includes a vision, goal, and guiding principles. It was developed by Oprah's Vision Board, apparently, which will inform all action taken as part of the strategy. This strategy is focused on driving action and enabling change in areas of Australian government responsibility across 4 key outcomes: social inclusion, economic inclusion, diagnosis, services and support, and health and mental health. The following reference provides the foundation for the strategy's guiding principles. Okay, so they're looking at the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So this came into force in 2008 and charges signatory countries, including Australia, with the responsibility to ensure this. Okay, what year is it again? It's 2025. Sorry, what year did it come in and Australia signed it? 2008. Okay. So what you're saying is the Australian government has willingly and knowingly been ignoring this convention and their responsibilities to see this convention implemented since 2008. Wow, that's quite a long time. So let's pass that. That means chicken crap. Human rights model of disability. Okay, that seems good. That seems like we're working on that too. No, we're not, clearly. Now here's another one. Strength-based and neurodiversity affirming approach. Rather than looking for ways to help autistic people fit in a neurotypical world, by the way, that's written by the government. The government have put in writing that we live in a neurotypical world. Now, you explain this to me. If the government have said we need to affirm diversity and strength-based rather than fitting in, why have they then put in the same sentence neurotypical world? See, that's a non-inclusive world. The strategy will take a neurodiversity affirming approach in a neurotypical world, valuing and respecting all neurotypes. Seeks to promote safety, understanding, acceptance, and appreciation of neurodiversity. The need for change sits with society as a whole. Vision statement. National Autism Strategy's vision is for a safe and inclusive society where all Australians are supported and empowered to thrive in all aspects of life, in line with international human rights, which we should have been enforcing since one of them the late 40s and the other one since 2008. The goal of the strategy is to improve the quality of life for all autistic people in a way that is meaningful to them. And by doing that, we talked to 200 people. 90 of them were autistic. Nothing about us without us, huh? That's not true. They're not going to do that. Okay. Self-determination and autonomy. We're going to actions implemented through this strategy will foster the freedom and ability of autistic people to make their own individual decisions. It's not a given that autistic Australians are entitled to make their own individual decisions or are entitled to their own autonomy in a free democracy. They're mere puffs, right? Mere puffs. Contract law for you right there, my friends. Mere puffs. The strategy's 4 key outcome areas are social inclusion, economic inclusion, diagnosis, services and support, health, and mental health. The strategy's outcomes are underpinned by 22 commitments. The commitments will be delivered over the life of the strategy through the combination of actions in the action plan and future actions. Future actions. Can you do future actions? Aren't actions present? Future actions, they're just things you plan to do. Like, I may have a future action of running a marathon in 5 years. I could die before then, or I could realize I'm a lazy fat bastard and I'm not going to run a marathon. There's no future actions. Actions are actions. You take action or you do not. So we've got social inclusion. This is always going to irritate autistic people. So it's ensuring everyone has the opportunity to participate. I can't say that word. Participate fully in our society. Okay, so great. Right. How are we going to do that? How are we going to help people? Because this is the thing, right? You can have a strategy, but if you leave your house and go down the street, don't you hope that you will be able to fully participate in your community? What will be the barriers to that? Well, the number one thing would be other people. Now, how is action steps in a plan going to alter other people? You see what I'm saying? It's not, in effect, autistic people that can fix this. It's non-autistic Australians, non-autistic Canadians, Americans, Brits, whoever. Non-autistic anyone's, non-autistic humans. It's up to you guys to create this environment of inclusion. So we have equal opportunity to learn, to work, to connect. Now, this is the thing. These are great things to say, but just break them down one by one. Okay, so equal opportunity to learn. Right, let's start. That's a lifelong job. You tell me how you think you're going to get university professors, lecturers, to alter their entire way of teaching and learning to include autistic people or neurodivergent people. Well, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. They're just going to keep doing the same old lectures because that's all they do. You tell me how you're going to get better accommodations for assessments and things. Well, they're not. They're just going to continue to give you more time to hand things in and more time for exams. But of course, they're useless because you didn't learn the stuff. That's a whole lifetime. No one's going to change that. Work. Okay, great. So you've got a person who's decided, I'm going to come up with a business to make money for my family. And I say, bloody good on them. I do the same thing. Okay, great. Now, someone's going to come along and work for me, and they're going to be autistic, and I'm going to have to change all these things for them. Well, I'll just hire someone that isn't them, and that's easier. So how do you fix that? Oh, we can pay the money. What do you mean pay the money? Well, the government is going to spit out money, just going to hemorrhage money to all these people to bribe them to hire autistic people. And that's inclusion? It's not inclusion if you bribe people. Please play with my son. Please hire me, right? It doesn't make any sense. Social inclusion commitments. Increase understanding, acceptance and appreciation. Well, hang on a second. That sounds familiar. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard all about increasing understanding, acceptance and appreciation of autistic people? I'm just trying to work out where I've heard that before. Where have I heard that? Oh, that's right. My channel, my YouTube channel, and its slogan in the first sentence. Okay, greater public education, including building a better understanding of the diversity of autism within workplaces and service systems, with a focus on health, education, and the federal justice system. Okay, there are state-based justice systems as well, though. Oh, we can't do that. That's the state government's job. Okay, so unless an autistic person commits a federal crime, which is very unlikely, more likely they may be alleged to have committed a state-based crime. They're stuffed. See, I might be getting this wrong, but if this is the case, what they're basically saying is we have bad outcomes in the criminal justice system. We're going to fix them, but we can't touch all the state criminal justice systems. So that matters for the state. So in other words, the National Autism Strategy can't actually help autistic people in their home states navigate the justice system because they're state-based. Am I right? And if I am right in saying this, that is one of the biggest, most monumental flaws, holes in this goal that you're going to find. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Increasing representation of the diversity of autistic people in the Australian public service, media, sports, and the arts. Increasing accessible and sensory-friendly public, broadcast and online spaces. The problem with these types of things, rather than pinching in and really zooming in on stuff they can fix and that can be addressed, they zoom out so far that everything they say, it's so generically far-fetched that it's impossible to fail, but it's also impossible to achieve. Increasing the capacity and capabilities of advocates and advocacy organisations to challenge and reduce stigma of autism and education of autistic people and their families and carers about their rights. Remember I said strategy is one thing. You need to take action, and that action needs to lead to the desired outcome. So delivering on these commitments will contribute to achieving. So it won't achieve. We'll achieve, no, not achieve, Orion. Well, contribute to achieving. What does that mean? It's just our way of saying if we don't achieve it, it wasn't our fault, it was the other contributions, right? We'll contribute to achieving the following impacts. Highlighted as a high priority by the autistic and autism community through consultation processes, of which I was a part of one, and I got fired for trying to tell autistic people things that would help them as autistic people. The rights of autistic people being upheld. Reduced harm experienced by autistic people. Increased autism awareness and acceptance in the general community, because they can do that. Didn't you know that in free democracies, the government can tell you how to think? Didn't you know that? Yeah, they can tell you, they can control your mind. They can tell you how to think, how to act. Yeah. That's democracy. What do you mean you're going to tell people? You can't tell. Increased inclusion of autistic people within the community. Now, that'll work. And improved access to responsive supports, services and information, although right now they don't even know how to actually support and provide services for autistic people. In fact, in Australia, they're trying to get autistic people off the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Why? Because we're the biggest cohort, so we cost them the most money. And that must mean we're criminals or we're wasting money. So we have to find a way to get you off this ASAP. Here's an idea. Let's come up with a strategy. Economic inclusion is another big one. Now, the ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, Autism in Australia 2022 data indicates autistic adults experience poorer outcomes in terms of employment, with approximately 50% of autistic people of working age participating in the workforce. 50% seems high to me, compared to around 60% of people with disability of working age, and around 85% of just people without disabilities of working age. That's big, guys. If you don't have a job, you don't have money. If you don't have money, you can't sustain life. Do you understand? Economic inclusion commitments increase meaningful employment opportunities, including business ownership, self-employment, and entrepreneurship in social enterprises for autistic people. Now, okay, so here's the thing. Does that to you look like that was written for the next Elon Musk or your child? So do you think there are autistic kids growing up right now, and of those, a large percentage can own their own business, will want to be entrepreneurs? Or do you think they'll just get by in life? Do you think, God, I hope by the time they can work, they're able to read and write? God, I hope by the time they're able to work, they're able to properly cook for themselves, dress themselves, ride a bike, keep themselves safe? Because adding the word meaningful, whilst on the surface sounds really good. If we're talking about 50% of autistic people unemployed, we want to increase employment opportunities. Adding the word meaningful sounds so much nicer, but I'm not here to be nice. Not all autistic people want to be a business owner, an entrepreneur. There are autistic people that actually utterly adore working in factories or trade or transport. This isn't a judgment. You can't say more meaningful employment when half of us don't even have a job. Can we just start with increasing employment? That'd be good. Support employers. Okay, so now we're talking about money. We're going to bribe. Let's bribe people. We're going to bribe employers, not support, it's bribe. We're going to bribe employers to hire and retain autistic employees through improving the accessibility of recruitment processes and workplace environments that are safe and inclusive for all autistic people. We're going to improve the supports and services available to autistic people to ensure they have choice and control over their education and careers. Increase the diverse representation of autistic people in management, senior executive, and board positions, promoting autistic people as visible role models. Well, that's interesting. Well, of course that should be the case, but guess what? Number one, autistic people in management. Okay, let's start. In a neurotypical world, we are not good managers by your standards, right? Why is that, Orion? Well, you're honest and open and matter of fact, and you don't treat us like friends, or right? You're not professional in how you do it. So the only way to help autistic people become managers or in management would be to force them to act neurotypical. Oh, Orion, you can't manage people like that. No, that makes them uncomfortable. What? I told them that they made a mistake. Here's the mistake. Here's how they need to do it better next time, and why they need to do it better. Well, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? So this is the issue. I always get the square peg, round peg wrong. But anyway, you can't just say, we're going to get these square pegs, we're going to whack them in these round holes of management. Just keep punching them in until they'll eventually get in there, and then we'll tick the box. Senior executive and board positions. Okay, maybe in autistic organisations, but as a whole in corporate commercial entities, the issue here is for some autistic Australians, they may want to do certain careers, and those careers may be a no-go zone because they are autistic. Oh, no, you can't do this career because you have an autism diagnosis. So that means you can't do this job or that job. But then you think they can somehow be uplifted. Yeah, visible role models. See, visible role models are autistic people who are already out there trying to help other autistic people. And the only thing getting in their way, it's not about increasing the representation. The only thing getting in their way is, again, the whack-a-mole mentality of the neurotypical world. Autistic advocate pops their head up, whack-a-mole, right? Improve inclusive practices, accommodations, awareness of communication needs, and the quality and accessibility of advocacy resources for autistic students, their families, carers, and support workers. So what are they saying? They're going to say, look, these commitments will contribute, they won't achieve, they'll contribute to achieving improved education opportunities and outcomes for autistic people. Great. Well, that would be amazing, but I can't see it happening. Improved employment opportunities and outcomes for autistic people and greater autism awareness and responsiveness of employers, workplaces, and employment services. And we're happy to bribe you to do that. Diagnosis, services, and support. The average age of diagnosis in children in Australia is about 3 to 4 years of age. The most frequent age is 5 to 9. Diagnosis is possible as early as 18 to 24 months of age. There you go, huh? Now, they're saying early identification and diagnosis actually leads to better education, social, and economic outcomes. Now, I would argue that's probably not actually correct or not fully correct because let's say you're diagnosed when you're a kid, but if you still have to go to the same education system and the same employment system that, as in today, right now, is still not able to adapt to include and support autistic people. Diagnosis is likely to occur later for girls, women, those with less overt or internalized presentations, those living in rural, that's a hard word, regional and remote areas, and co-occurring conditions. What are we going to do? Consider the use, accuracy, feasibility, and acceptability of current identification, screening, and diagnostic tools. Wow. What a sentence. So we're just going to consider it. Please consider. Just consider it. Yeah, the use, accuracy, just consider the accuracy. Just consider it. Work with relevant professional bodies to develop a set of standardized co-design training, professional development, and resource materials. What a sentence. To support professionals involved in the identification and diagnosis of autism to improve the... It's still going. It's still going. To improve the experience and quality of this process for autistic people and their families and carers. Develop best practice resources to support autistic people and their families, carers and support networks. Services and supports improve access to quality, timely neurodiversity affirming. What the hell is neurodiversity affirming? And equitable supports and services for autistic people. Encourage greater representation of people with lived experience in delivering supports and services to autistic people. Well, that's gone well for me so far. They just love me. Develop a set of best practice training and resource material for people providing support and services to autistic people. Assess the availability and sustainability of current decision-making tools aimed at empowering autistic people to make informed decisions about all areas of their life. Work with states and territories to improve the experience of autistic people accessing supports through the NDIS, disability supports outside the NDIS, and mainstream services. What's it going to contribute to achieve? My apologies. An improved awareness and access to respectful assessment and diagnosis. Really? Okay. It's going to take about 7 decades. Improved information and support to navigate the assessment and diagnosis process. Increased quality, timely, neurodiversity affirming, here we go again, and equity access to support services. By the way, this one here, this access to diagnosis stuff. If you went to medical school, let's say you're going to become a doctor, maybe a psychiatrist. If you went to medical school, how many units would you do on autism? How many units are available? Now, I can't answer that question for you, but the silence is deafening. Health and mental health. How big is this? absolutely massive. I don't think for health and mental health, they've actually put in statistics. Now, why do you think? Is that true? Have they really missed it out? I hope they haven't done that. I think they have. Now, why did they have? Why do you think if every section provided statistics that prove this is needed because it's quite a bad outcome, why do you think the government haven't published statistics around autistic people and health and mental health challenges? I wonder why. Needless to say, by the time this plan's implemented, a large portion of us will be dead. Okay, so health and mental health. Develop a governance framework to support strong accountability mechanisms, continuing co-leadership through... Actually, I'm not going to read this. It's boring. You can read it yourself. Just pause it and read it yourself. Research. Ensure Australian government-funded autism research conducted in Australia is underpinned by the strategy's guiding principle and used to inform policy and service delivery with a focus on priority cohorts. Here's the big thing, right? A lot of organisations that do funding get their money from the government, and that money comes from us, the taxpayers. Okay. But the research isn't actually underpinned by any idea of improving the quality of lives of autistic people through ways that are any different to, well, here's a possible treatment to fix those symptoms, or this might cure it. It's very uncommon. So that's not especially helpful. So I'm definitely not going to read all these, but I just want to scroll through the actual action plan document. Okay. I love this, by the way. First action plan actions in social inclusion. You can pause this and read this, but basically it has commitment 1, the social inclusion. Action 1, examine examples including internationally of autism and disability awareness and public education activities to inform the following actions and approaches. So action 1 is examine examples. That's the action. And if you want to check out these documents, all the links are in the description of the video. Okay. Action 2. In the context of the Australian government response to the Multicultural Framework Review, ensure the experiences of autistic people from these communities are considered in actions to support social inclusion. Action 3, evaluate existing autism-related training for workers and professionals within the education, health, justice, migration, and media sectors. Now, again, what does it say? What's the action? Evaluate the training. So the action they're taking to improve the lives of autistic Australians is to evaluate. You're taking the action of evaluating it, but you're just evaluating it. Do you see what I mean? It continues to push it further away. Commitment number 2, action 1, evaluate existing government-funded peer support models. Action 2, informed by the evaluation under action 2.1, this is the peer support models, deliver a peer support program that provides age-appropriate and culturally sensitive support tailored to the diverse needs of the autistic and autism community. Commitment 3, action 1, in line with the Australian government's response to the recommendations of the Disability Royal Commission, the Australian government will lead the development of an associated plan under Australia's disability strategy to improve the accessibility of information and communications for people with disability. Evaluate government grants managed to ensure how information and processes relating to grant opportunities can be communicated and designed in ways that are accessible to autistic people. There's grants for autistic people. You can pause this and look at it. You can also look at the document. As we go through these, can you see how these aren't real actions? Evaluate current pathways and information for reporting workplace bullying and discrimination. It's called Take It to HR and Get Fired. Explore opportunities. Do you understand where I'm coming from here? That the actions that are going to be taken based on the horrible statistics found and the national autism strategy being implemented to address those, the action being taken, by the way, between 2025 and 2031, not even right now. These aren't all just, let's do it. Can you see how that can be alarming? Economic. Evaluate the effectiveness of existing autism-specific employment programs. I mean, there's so much to do in each action. How do they ever expect to get anything done? Have a look. Have a look at all the points for one action. Evaluate the effectiveness of existing programs. Work with the priority cohorts. Well, that's the point, right? That's an action. Evaluate existing information and resources. What is the point? Evaluate. Develop guidance. Evaluate. I feel like a robot. Evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. Explore. What are we going to do today to take action? Just explore. Okay. Explore what? I don't know. How we can expand things that are already existing. Okay. What else are we going to do? We're going to explore adapting things. Okay. Now that sounds good. That sounds good. What's another action we can do? I don't know. Let's examine. Let's examine the barriers that autistic students experience across the higher education student life cycle. Holy hell. So, and how are we going to do that? Oh, we'll just improve and build evidence. How much more evidence do you need? You have the evidence. You put it in the start of the document I just read. So this is the health and stuff. And, here's the thing, right? If I said, explain an action, you might say run, jump, cough, punch, hit. But what I'm saying is, if I got you to explain an action, do you think it would be this long? Is this how you would word an action? Are these actions in collaboration with? No shit, guys. Hello, that's an action. Your action is to work in collaboration with autistic people. Great action, guys. You could do that without a document. In collaboration with autistic people. Again, it's another action. 2 actions in a row. But that's not an action. That's just a given. That's a reality. That's not an action. Look how long it is. Improving, exploring. Look how worded this action is. What action are you using to get to the shops? Driving. And now here's 3 paragraphs on how I'm going to drive. Work with autistic researchers and professionals. I love this action as always. Consider. Let's just consider this. No action. This is the epitome of no action. Inaction. Your actions are inactions. Actively promote and facilitate the inclusion of all autistic people. And how are you going to do that? Well, we'll consider it. We'll evaluate it. We'll explore it. Okay. By the start of 2026, by the end of 2025, they have committed to develop and implement a governance framework with representation to reflect the diversity of the autistic and autism community, with a focus on the priority cohorts identified in the strategy, to oversee implementation of the strategy and this action plan and development of subsequent actions. So guys, this here is what they're committing to do in a year. And what does that look like? That looks like coming up with actions and strategies. But I'm reading the actions to the strategy. Continue to work. Commence work. In collaboration with. Work with. Explore. Within the first year, we are going to develop an evidence, an evaluation framework, and reporting mechanisms for the strategy. So this is classic public service crap. So they're going to take a whole year where they're trying to fix the lives of autistic people. They're going to take a whole year, and what are they going to do in that year? We're going to develop evidence and evaluation framework to report mechanisms for this strategy. Who's supposed to understand that sentence, by the way? Was that written by the confusing sentence employee at the public service? Like, seriously? So it's going to take you a year to come up with a framework for the strategy you've already released with the action points. And that's an action point. Oh, mate. I mean, you see what we're dealing with here, guys? It really is little wonder why autistic people all over the world have passed the point of screaming or crying out loud, please help us. We have now got to the point where we realize there is no real help coming. And the only thing coming for us is words and inaction. Things like strategies, things that aren't, in effect, able to address any of our genuine quality of life concerns.